Hello everyone, welcome once again to Python with Obinkojo. Today we'll be looking at strings and let's dive right into it. Strings is basically sequence of characters, and that is a typical example. We can create strings by either using a single quote or a double quote, and that is an example of a double quote, and that is an example of a single quote. We can also type an entire phrase or a sentence and then store it as a string. So that's an example. I love Python programming. We'll be seeing more of that when we get into Jupyter Notebooks. Now, because string is a sequence of characters, it's actually an ordered sequence of characters. Ordered means that every character has its specific position. And to access the position, so if we go back in there, P has its position, Y has its position in that order. To access the individual characters within a string, we either use what we call indexing or slicing. So either string indexing or string slicing. The difference is very simple. When we are using indexing, we are accessing just a single character from the string. If we are using slicing, we are accessing a subsection, that is multiple characters from the string. So indexing has to do with just one character, and then slicing has to do with two or more characters. Now let us quickly look at how indexing actually works. Let's assume that we create a string that is called a string variable called that has Python stored in it. So Python. This is how the indexing works. So every character that is stored within a string has its position, and in Python the very first character has the position of 0, the next one 1, in that order. So always remember that the first character starts from 0 and sequentially in that order. In the same way, so to access the first character, we would call the index 0. To access the second character, we'll call the index 5. If you want to access the very last character, that is n, we'll use the index 5 in accessing that. There is an interesting other way in which we can access it. Python has what we call the reverse index or the negative index. In the same manner, we can use the reverse indexing to access the individual characters. And in reverse indexing, the very last character within the string has the index of -1, and as it decreases, as it comes backwards, the negative values keeps decreasing. So from -1, the next character is -2. Now the question is, why the need for this negation or reverse index? Let's assume that this string happens to be very long and you want to access the last one. Don't you think it's going to be very difficult trying to count all the index positions? So with the reverse indexing, we can easily be able to grab the very last character, since we know that the very last character is always -1. All right, so let us just have a look at the syntax, how the syntax of extracting a character within a string by indexing. So this is the syntax. So the variable name and then the index position of that character. And a typical example, let's assume that we create a variable called name and then we assign these characters Python, and because of the single quote, we know it's a string. Now at every point in time, if you want to access just the very first character, that is the capital P, all you have to do is you call the variable name, which is name, and then you open a square bracket and then you place the index position, which is 0. If we come back here, we realize that the P index position for the very first one is 0. To access the second, the H here, when we count 0, 1, 2, 3, so H has the index of 3. So to access that, we call the variable name a square bracket and then the index position, that is 3, and that gives us H. Just to demonstrate the inverse character, when we call the name of the character with a square bracket and then negative figure, -1, we are going to get the last character, which is n. Let's now jump to slicing. So slicing has a different syntax. we'll use the variable name and then a square bracket. In slicing, we are looking at the start position, and that is the index position where you would want to start grabbing your character. So example, if I come back here, if you want to, let's say, grab 1, 2, 3 characters, your start position is going to be 2. So 2 is going to be your start position. You want T, you want to start from T. So T becomes your very first index position. And then the stop index is where you want to end grabbing your characters. However, let's note that the stop position is not included. So when we go back here, if you want to extract THO from the string, we are starting at 2 and we are stopping at 5. So we start at 2 and stop at 5. Now note 5 is not included. So it is the start to the stop, but stop not included. Therefore, we are going to get THO, excluding the last letter N. So that is what it is. And then the step is the number of jumps you would want to make after grabbing each character. So if we come here, let's say we want to grab P and we want to grab T and then O, PTO. What we do is that we are going to put a start of 0 to get that, and we are going to maybe place a stop of 5 because we want the entire length, and a stop of 5. Then we are going to say a jump of 2. So after grabbing this, or jump is going to jump 1, 2, then we get our T. It's going to jump 1, 2, then we get our O. So the step just jumps over, is the number of jumps you make before you grab your next character within the string. Alright, so that is that. So let's just jump into our Jupyter notebook and demonstrate all these concepts that we've just learned. Let's just go ahead and then create our string and see how it's done. So we can just, as I said earlier, you can use a single quote or a double quote. So let's try the single quote first. So I'm going to create a string that contains the characters hello. When I run that, we get hello. You can also go ahead and use the double quotes. We run that and then we get our double quote. As I said earlier, we can also store an entire phrase or a sentence within a string. So let's go ahead and try that. I'll say hello, this is Python programming. Sorry. And when we run that, we have our hello, this is Python programming. Now let's go ahead and then tackle the issue of the single quote and then the double quotes. This is where it becomes very handy. Assuming I want to store a string that says I am in love with Python, what I'm going to do, let me say I'm going to use the single quote. So I'll say I am in love with Python programming. And now I end it. Now we realize that we are having some highlighting in here. So this is what is confusing. Python, the moment we started the single quote, Python knows that we've opened a session to store in a string. However, there is a closing quote, single quote here. So Python assumes that this is the beginning of our string and that is the end of our string. However, we want to actually end it here. So in scenarios like this, what you do is that instead of using the single quote, we can now use the double quote at the beginning and then the double quotes at the end. Now Python now knows that we started with the double quotes, therefore it is expecting a double quote to end our string. Now when we run that, we get a perfect string that says I am in love with Python programming. Now let me just clarify this. You realize that whenever I run the cell, we end up getting the string in a quote just as we declare them. So what is happening here is that Python is just returning the string. To actually print out the string, to print the actual value of the string, we would have to say print. So if I go ahead and say print hello, sorry, and run that now we actually see the actual value of the string. So this has been printed to the screen for us. Now why is this handy? Let me just go ahead and then say hello Python 1, and then do same and say hello Python 2, and let me run that. Now when I run this, Python is going to just return just the last string that was created. But to actually be able to output the two string that has been created, we need to do print and then print for that as well. And now when we run, we are going to get our two strings that has been created. So hello Python 1 and then hello Python 2. Now a quick one, let's see how we can, something we call escape sequence and strings. So assuming I want to go ahead, let me just repeat the same thing here. Let me just create the same string and let me paste it here. Now escape sequence are special effects that we can apply on strings. So let's say I want to realize that whenever I go ahead and print this, when I print this, I end up getting my entire string in one line. Now to decide which section or which part of the string you would want to move to the next line, we can use the escape sequence, the \n, which means new line. So let's say I want to say I am in love with, and then Python programming should start on a new line. All I do is I type the / and then n, and then I run again. Now we realize that we have Python running on a different Python programming being displayed on a different in a different line. Okay, so let me just add another one character escape sequence that we can look at is, let me just go ahead and then repeat the same thing here. I'm just going to paste that. So in place of this \n, we are going to do \t, and what \t does is it's just like using tab when you are using Microsoft Word. If I run that, realize that there is a big gap here, so it applied one tab in between with and then Python. We can combine the two. We can say \n and then t, and when we run that, we realize that we have Python programming being moved to the next line, and at the same time having a big gap in front of it. So those are what we call escape sequences. Now before we move into indexing and slicing, let me just show you this string function called len. So if I say len, we've been using type throughout. There's another one. So if I say len hello and then I run that, it's going to give us the length of the string. Now you realize that the length is 1 2 3 4 5, so we have 5 characters in here. If I however go ahead and then bring a space and I run this time, it's going to say 6. So take note that spaces are also characters when you create strings. Okay, let's get to indexing and then we'll then see how this works. So let me just jump down here to string indexing and slicing. So I'm just leaving this here for reference. Okay, so let's go ahead quickly and then let me declare a variable. We've done that already, so I'm just going to call this variable course name, and then I'm going to assign the characters Python, or let's say intro to Python. And now let me run that. When I run that, it will be saved. If I go ahead and say print, if I go ahead and I say print course name, I get intro to Python. Now let us demonstrate how we can index these individual characters. So as I showed in the slides earlier, to access any character, just a single character, we use indexing. So I'm just to do that, the syntax is to call the string, the variable name, which is course name. So to access the very first character I will use the index position 0, and when I run this, I get I. To fix it, this is also just returning. If I want to fix that, I can just say print. Sorry. I can just say print, and when I run that, I get I. So I'll be using, just to save time, let us try to extract the last letter. If we count, we have 1 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14. So the last character is 14. So when I enter 14 within the square bracket and I run that, I'm going to get the last character. Now let me just go ahead and then use the inverse indexing. We know that the last character is also -1, so let us use -1 and see what we get. We end up getting the last character. Let's try the last one. If I want to access the third character, that is T, we know it's T minus 1 because the first one is 0. So 0 1 2. So when I enter 2 and I run that, we get the first T. Let me just make it obvious and then make this one a capital T, and then let's try again. So let's access the capital T. We have 0 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. We just enter 6 and we run that, and we are able to access our capital T. Now let's move on to slicing. That is, as I said earlier, slicing is to extract multiple characters. Now we'll be using the same or let me create something that will be very obvious. Let me just create something that is going to be very obvious. So let's create new let's just create new string, and then let's input these characters into it. Let me say let me say A B C D E F G H I J K L. Let's go ahead and print our new string. And then we have that. Okay, so let's look at how, as if you remember, with slicing we have 3 parameters. We have the start, we have the stop, and then we have the step. So let's look at how that is done. So we are going to extract a portion of the string, and I'll just use the variable name, and then with my square bracket. Now square bracket, so assuming I would want to extract from the very first character to, let's say, to D. So I want A, B, C, and then D. I'm going to pass my first parameter, which is going to be 0 because A, the index position of A is 0. So I'm just going to pass in 0 in here, 0, and then my colon, and what is going to be my stop. Remember, the stop is always -1. The stop position is not included. So to be able to extract up to D, we are going to count 0 1 2 3 4. Since the fourth one would not be included, we are going to use that 4. So it is, the stop is always -1 to get exactly what we are looking for. If we run that, we are going to get A, B, C, D. If I go ahead and copy that and repeat that. Now let's assume we want to extract D to G. So D, the index position of G is 0 1 2 3. 0 1 2 3. So we can then enter 3 in here and up to G. So 0 1 2 3 4 5 6. So we add 1. So 7 to get D up to G. When we run that, we get D up to G. Now let us experiment with the step. Let us add a step. Now we would want to extract. Okay, before we go to the step, let's see how we can extract the entire string. So another very simple way we can do that is the very start position, we are going to leave it open, and then the stop is also going to be open. When you do this, you are telling Python that, okay, I'm not specifying, so start from the beginning, and I'm not specifying the stop, and then end at the very tail of it. When I run that, we are going to get the entire string. Let's add the steps. So now we're going to do that. We're going to say, so let's assume we want to extract A, C, E. So after every extraction, we jump one and then we extract the next. Let's see how we do that. So we're going to start at index position 0, and we're going to say step 2, and then we're going to say, sorry, we are going to say the stop. Because we want to end at the very tail end, we can leave it blank. Don't forget that. If we want to end at the tail end, we can leave the stop blank, or we can check we can count to the very last one. So let's just leave it blank for now. Sorry, let's leave it blank, and then let us enter our step size. So let's say 2, and let's run that and then see what happens. So what is happening is that we extracted the first one, then we jumped 1, 2 to get the second, the C, then we jump 1, 2 to get E, 1, 2 to get G, 1, 2 to get. If I go ahead and make this 3, let's see what happens. If I run that, we are going to get, we extract the very first one, that is 0, then we jump 1, 2, 3 to D, then we extract that, then we jump 1, 2, 3 to G, and then we extract that. So that is string indexing and then string slicing, as simple as it is. Now, just a giveaway, let me just give you a quick tip. One other thing you can also do is you can use a very simple method to reverse your entire string. Let's say you've been asked to reverse these characters. The simplest way to do that is to just go ahead and do this. Thus, you should remember, it's one trick in Python that we all are proud of. So you see, space, start is 0, stop is 0, then you do -1. You run that and you are going to get the reverse of your string. So LK in that order. Thank you. We would meet in the next session. We'll continue with strings. Bye bye for now.